Good morning and welcome to MH Warrior TV. I'm Kerry Burr, the Human GPS, and this is Coffee Morning. I'm joined this morning by two lovely ladies, the Warrior Queen herself, Kerry Duval, and our very own Rainbow Warrior, Caroline Bennis. And we're going to be having a chat about our own experiences with the law of attraction. And we'll be with you right after this. Good morning, Caroline.
Good morning, Kerry.
How are you keeping?
Great.
Good.
Yeah, fantastic.
Excellent. we've lost Kerry Duval at the minute.
Yeah.
Is she sorting out a cat or something?
No sound or no audio.
Ah, bless.
Oh, well.
Right.
She'll be back. She'll be back.
I'm sure she will. And how was your weekend?
Yeah, it was very good. It's quiet enough. Actually, didn't do too much now. Just getting used to the change in the season. I'm just saying I'm kind of finding I'm a bit tired because it's so dark so early now. 6 o'clock and it's pitch dark. So yeah. I find a bit trying to adjust to that.
Oh, I know. Oh, I think Kerry's with us now. There we go.
Sorry about that. My cat's on the power button.
What a powerful cat.
Yeah. Well, because he's Mancoon, he is quite a heavy cat. So when you press on it for 10 seconds, it completely shuts the laptop down. I'm like, oh, God.
Oh, no. Oh, bless. Oh, bless.
A bit of entertainment from Monday morning.
You gotta love him, though, haven't you? Really?
Yeah. I love his timing. Just the second we went live, he just pressed off the power button. Clever cat.
Annoying.
Oh, he just wants your attention. He just wants your
that's
attention.
It. Yeah.
Well, he wanted my attention at 11 o'clock last night.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's funny actually. Because I have had cats, but as you know, I've got dogs, and there's a big difference between cats and dogs in their behaviour, isn't there? Dogs can you can train dogs, and but we're taught that we have to be the alpha dog, But with cats, it's all on their terms. It's when they want it, and never mind about us. Can you imagine if cats ruled the world?
Yeah,
I'd love that. I'd love it.
Yeah, they're very cool and slick, aren't they? It's like if I feel like it, I'll think about it. We have two cats and a dog, and our dog kind of herds and manages the cats. It's kind of puts kind of boundaries in place around the cats. It's hilarious. Actually, it's a Havanese, and it's kind of bred to herd hens. So I think actually she thinks they're hens or something. So she's kind of herding them around the place, and chasing them and everything. It's great crack because they keep each other exercised because the cats run after the dog. But definitely, I think the myth of cats or dogs dominating cats is totally untrue and false, because cats definitely dominate dogs.
Oh, absolutely. My two dogs, when they go out in the garden, Tia, my German Shepherd, especially last thing at night, she'll come trotting back through the door, and then she'll stop and she'll turn around and she'll go back to the door and she'll stand there looking. She's looking for a Miko, the lab pointer. And if she can't see him, she'll go out and find him, and then they both come trotting back. There is. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Anyway.
Adam in the comments, can animals tap into the law of attraction like us? I think they can.
I think they do, yeah, because they're not. I say they're not programmed like us. I mean, obviously, you know, when we train dogs to do certain things, don't we? And to walk nicely on the lead, and to come back when they're called, and to sit and lay down, etc. But more importantly, when they come into the world, like us, that animals are hardwired, whereas we aren't. And that's why it's so easy for us to take on board everything that's going on around us, and we take on the beliefs and the values of those that bring us up, be it parents, caregivers, you know, school teachers, anyone that's involved in our immediate environment, and we essentially become programmed to behave and think in a certain way according to that environment, according to society. And to actually, we don't realize, we don't know when we're born just how powerful we are, just how much just exactly what we can do, what we can achieve. And then we're taught to believe that, well, you can only achieve this if you work hard, or if you do that, it's all these things going on, all these things that we're being told, and eventually we believe them. You know, I mean, as young children, we're going to believe them because we don't know any different. And it's not until we get older and we start to realize that, actually, do you know what? I don't want to do that. I want to do something else. And if we've got that passion, if we've got enough desire, and we have that belief that we can actually achieve it, we'll go out and we'll make sure that we do achieve it. How long it takes is, you know, again, kind of depends on us, and depends on how we get, or whether we allow ourselves to be distracted and go in slightly different directions, off at tangents and what have you. But animals, as I say, they're hardwired. So when they come into this world, their instinct is survival, and they will learn from their mothers or pack, whatever, you know, in the wild. They learn how to survive, and that's all they need. That is all they need. But we're very different.
In my house, it's obviously my cat had kittens. She had 5 little girls, and we've actually kept 3 of them. And they've learned that when Jess is in the kitchen meowing loudly, that normally means food and to run. So, yeah, and it still happens now. You can be in the kitchen meowing at me, and they'll all come in.
Yeah.
Don't they say that animals absorb our emotional energy? You know, I've heard that say, and actually I've heard, you know, studies describing that sometimes if, you know, the owners have kind of, you know, depression or anxiety or something like that, that the dog's life expectancy is actually decreased, because they're actually, you know, because they're fantastic for mental health. They're brilliant because they give people you know, a purpose that's outside of themselves. So they have to get out, bring them out for a walk. Sometimes if they don't even have that energy or if that drive in themselves, you can just do the basic things of getting up and, you know, getting dressed. But you have to do it if they have an animal, you know, like especially dogs, you know, because they need to kind of get up, get ready. And sometimes, you know, I've heard of people coming out of, you know, breakdowns and stuff like that, and it's the dog, even just that simple routine of getting up and feeding the dog and bringing the dog out for a walk or whatever, that does kind of get them kind of back, brings them, you know, slowly back into life again, you know. So they're brilliant for that, you know.
Oh, bless.
Oh, she's gone again.
She's back in the green room.
The cats are calling her.
I think they are, yeah. I think the cats have switched her off again.
Yeah. They're cutting this show.
Yeah. No, it's interesting though, isn't it? How animals behave after being around humans, or when they're around humans. Because I guess, you know, when they're in the wild, they are wild. They're feral, aren't they? Essentially, and I guess we humans were at some point in time, and I think if we didn't have the society that we do have, we probably would be feral as well.
Yeah, it's funny, Kerry, though, because, you know, I think there's something coming out of this, because, you know, you're talking about the law of attraction, you're talking about, you know, automatic, you know, I suppose, dogs and cats, you know, trying to get their needs met and their basic needs and stuff. And then, you know, the way that we've been programmed to kind of work hard or whatever. And I feel actually, you know, and there's a lot of talk about it now, that, you know, when you start to kind of listen to your own kind of destiny, I call it, you start to become rewilded. You know, you have to kind of become a little bit more feral, you know, to start to find that within yourself, you know, because you're coming out of, you know, to break out of that, you know, it's a conflict within yourself. I think when you're a child, you're born with that natural kind of inclination to do what you enjoy, to be, you know, in celebration of life, to be, you know, curious. Like, you know, children are so curious, and, you know, to be spontaneous and to be adaptable and to show your emotions. Like, we have all that. And then, you know, when the conflict arises, then is when, you know, the conditioning starts, and it starts to kind of say, no, you can't, you shouldn't do that. You know, all these words, like I said, you know, the words as medicine, you know, shouldn't, couldn't, wouldn't, all that kind of stuff here, they're part of that kind of system. And eventually, you know, you kind of, it's like you're kind of, yeah, you're coming into a different state of mind then, and the conflict arises then, and that's when mental health comes in, when you're in conflict within yourself, you know. And then sometimes, like, a breakdown needs to happen for people to realize, you know, this isn't working for me, you know, I have to try and find a new way out of that, you know. And I suppose, yeah, trying to align with people who understand that, you know, there is a different direction that you can take, you know, and that you can start to tap into those natural kind of, I suppose, drives, isn't it, you know, that will serve you, you know, and serve your core needs.
Absolutely. So I'm just reading the comments. Apparently the laptop has kicked Kerry out and it won't let her back in. So anyway. Bless her. Well, hopefully the laptop will behave itself and allow her back in so that she can join us in a little while. So we'll put that out there. We'll put that out there. Yeah, definitely. It's very interesting, isn't it? With the law of attraction, because it's working all the time, and I have numerous conversations with all sorts of different people about this, and some people are very receptive to the idea of the law of attraction, and others are a little bit, yeah, whatever, you know. But I find it absolutely fascinating. As I say, it's working all of the time. So whatever we're putting out there, whatever we're thinking, however we're feeling, we're going to get that back. Yeah. Not necessarily instantly, but at some point, aren't we? Yeah. So I think, as I said, I think it'd be really interesting to perhaps have a chat about our own experiences with the law of attraction, and they don't have to be necessarily, you know, good experiences. They could be negative experiences, as in, you know, we've been in a negative frame of mind, state, whatever, and the things that have happened as a result of that, just so that we can kind of get it out there, that for people that are a little bit about it, and hopefully they will realize that, you know, it is a thing, and we ultimately are responsible for what happens in our lives.
Yeah, well, Kerry, it was you, because I think initially we were going to have a talk about the workplace and mental health in the workplace, and then decided to talk about law of attraction. So yesterday I was just thinking, it came to me, it was actually like a combination of both. I was actually kind of thought to myself, actually, I think that what's been most predominant in my life, I didn't realize it was called the law of attraction back then. But as I look back on my life, I can see that actually I never actually ever applied for a job only once ever.
Yeah.
Because positions kind of just opened up for me. I was invited into something, or, so it was very much kind of like the law of attraction that just brought me through life, and like I used to drive my brother mad, my older brother, because he'd say, Caroline, if you want a job, like you just say you want it, and then all of a sudden, like somebody might keel over and die, and you walk into the position. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I couldn't understand what he was talking about. Like, what? And you can see that, like, it was just like something I might start to say, oh, I'd like to do this, or I'd like to, something would just arise in my curiosity again, and then, like, say for example, that I went to Germany when I was in college, and I got a job there, and then I was looking for another position, and they said no, the position was closed, and then all of a sudden something happened a week later, and they called me and I said, sorry, position is open now, and then I got the job, and I ended up getting about 10 people jobs in the same place, and then I moved on again, and I went into an internship. And after the internship, I was offered a position there, so I didn't have to apply for that job. I came back to Ireland and I did apply for jobs. That was the first time I applied for jobs, and I got the job that I really wanted. And then after that, I was thinking to myself, I'd like to do something in education. And next thing, a phone rang and said, would you like to come in and do some studying for Griffith College? And then I always wanted to do lecturing, and then they ended up saying, would you like to lecture here? And and it just went on, and even actually, to the point of Warrior TV, because I just had about a week beforehand, I was saying, do you know what, Caroline, you should start doing now? You'll have to start going live. You just have to start doing lives. And I was kind of getting on to myself saying, you haven't done any lives. Why haven't you done them? And next thing, Dorota says, Caroline, would you come on and do a live Warrior TV? And it's just, it just seems to just unfold like that. If you it starts with the intention, doesn't it? Or kind of a feeling that you'd like to do something, or it's not even a grasping or kind of a really, it's just like a natural interest, And I hadn't really realized that yesterday when I was thinking about your show, that definitely that I'm 47 years of age, that I've only applied for one job ever my whole life. It's pretty unusual, Yeah.
Wow. Well, yeah, it is. I think. I've got a friend who tends to be headhunted. He'll do contracts that have a set period of time, and then he'll have a little bit of time off, and he just puts it out there. When I say puts it out there, he's on LinkedIn, so and people are on the lookout on LinkedIn. It's great for things like that. But he just puts it out there, and he just has every faith, every belief that another contract will appear when he's ready and he needs it, and lo and behold, it does. Yeah. Now, whether he actually believes in the law of attraction or not, I don't know. It's not something that I've it's not a subject that I've broached with him, because he's very much everything is very black and white to him. Mm-hmm. And the concept of there being anything other than what he can see right in front of him is a little bit. It's not something that he's embraced over the years. Let's just put it that way, But yeah, so that in itself is just what you've just said. You've explained about your story, his story. It's very much a case of you just know that things are going to happen when they're meant to happen, and that it'll all come together.
I suppose it wasn't even knowing that. It was more just having an interest arising in myself. It's quite subtle, because I didn't know about the law of attraction, and you talk about it now. People intentionally trying to draw things to you. But for me, it was more subtle, and it's very subtle intention. And I think there is a subtlety to it, because it's like as if it's an intention that you have, but you let it go at once you've had the intention. You're not grasping onto it, so there's a subtleness to that, and I suppose like that man you're talking about, he's doing it without realizing it, it's just a programming he has, which is a very positive program he has in his head. Yeah. It doesn't really matter whether you believe it or not, it does happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm just reading what Drota's put in the comments. Energy attracts energy. So the law of attraction exists even beyond our minds. Of course, our mindset is powerful, but there are moments when we are distracted by a negative event, then likely another drama follows. And that is so true, isn't it? So true. I can remember a period of time many years ago where I so desperately wanted things to be better than they were. But I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to change things, and you get to that point where that desperation becomes so strong that it becomes a negative feeling. And with that negative feeling come the negative thoughts, why is this happening to me? Why me? Why me again? Yeah. Why does this always happen? And at one point there, for every time something negative happened, okay, I knew that I'd get through it, but then I was always waiting for the next negative thing to happen. So, and of course, at that time, I didn't realize that by consciously thinking about what bad thing's going to happen next, and that was attracting more negative things to come along. And I actually didn't hear about the law of attraction until I think it was about 4-5 years ago. And when I started learning about it, I suddenly realized that everything that I'd thought and believed over most of my life was related to that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the dots, I started being able to join the dots, and everything started to make sense. And it was like one of those major light bulb moments as well. It was like, I get it now. I get it now. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like as if you've got the right program for life, because the way it's like before that you're just like, it's like you're pushing up going up a hill with a massive weight, and you're just and you've been programmed into, you have to try hard, you have to work hard, and you're kind of constantly and also then I suppose you feel like if you feel that each day then is going to be the same as the following day, the previous day. You don't have that idea that like things can open up suddenly, and when you change your mindset, that things can shift out of the blue. Somebody can phone you up, and it's basically not really, it's letting go of control, isn't it? It's actually letting go of the fact that you think that you're controlling absolutely everything. Actually, there's other things that are happening around you that you have no idea of, that it's just when you have the right intention that life is going to, I think what's really important is to have, life affirming intention. So if you want to attract something to yourself, it's something that should be something that's going to bring more goodwill to the world, we'll say, so it's going to help other people. It's going to be, maybe you're going to, run courses for people, or you're going to have a business that's going to, elevate other people as such. And I think those kind of, pure intentions are always going to attract the same back into you, So, like you're saying, you have to be very careful about like what are you attracting and what are your intentions, and always be curious about and kind of make sure that your intentions are in the right place. Even when you are doing well and things are moving along, keep checking in on that, because you can kind of lose sight of, that pure intention, and you can start attracting negatives, I suppose, not very nice situations into your life, I suppose, like you said, so it's really being kind of very careful and discerning about that, isn't it?
Definitely. Yeah, it's like I said, about going through that period of, why me? What's the next bad thing that's going to happen? And constantly waiting for it. Well, that's the energy that you're putting out there. That's and as you're putting it out there, you're attracting more of the same back. Equally, there have been, certainly over the last couple of years, I've noticed, more last year than this year, but there were a lot of posts on social media where people were saying, you've got to remain positive, positive mindset, positive thoughts, positive action, blah, 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 blah. And then after a little bit, a few people were starting to say, well, they were actually referring to them as toxic positivity posts, because, and I understand where they were coming from with that, because as beings having a human experience, part of that human experience is to feel all of the different emotions and to have all of those different thoughts, but also to know that we have control in the most part over them. And admittedly, there are some thoughts, some feelings that it will take a little longer to work through and change around. But at the same time, there are also situations that we have no control over. We cannot control somebody else's behavior, somebody else's actions, somebody else's thoughts. We can only control our own. And we are not necessarily responsible for somebody else's behavior or thoughts. We each of us, I've said it before, I love the phrase, we each of us have our own model of the world. If we want our world, our individual world, to be a wonderful place, we have the power to create that. We have the power to do that. It took me a long time to realize that. I do remember at the age of about 12, 13, I was starting to clash with my mum a little bit. She was starting to go through menopause at quite an early age. So, of course, she was having difficulties and what have you. I was at an age where my body was starting to change, and, we all went through it. And she would have these ideas that certain friends were not a good influence on me. And I had to do as I was told. And no, you can't do that. Well, why can't I do that, Mum? Well, because this might happen or that might happen. And my response is, back then, I think about it now, and I was like, whoa, where did I get these things from?
Yeah.
Excuse me. My responses back then were, it's my life. You can't live it for me. And if I don't make mistakes, how am I ever supposed to learn?
Exactly.
And at the time, I know I'm right. Typical teenager. I know I'm right. I know everything. I'm absolutely right. So there was a clash. There was an absolute clash there. And I realized that, I guess I manifested that in some way. But at the same time, my mum being a completely different person, she'd been brought up a certain way. She had a certain set of values and beliefs, and she did things a certain way, the way that she believed was right for her. And that's fine. But at that time, it wasn't right for me. And as I say, looking on that now, and it's like, whoa, yeah, where did I get those things from?
Yeah,
What had actually happened? Because nobody had told me any of that. It was just something that popped into my head at the time, and I came out with it. But now I realise that actually I was right.
Yeah, you were, but like this, the way you said you manifested that as if it was a bad thing. That was actually perfectly right situation, because you were coming of age, like, and the fact that you were able to assert yourself, and you had the insight that you knew that basically why we're here is to learn. And actually, in the American Indian culture, they say, I think they have a proverb about, they wish people to make mistakes. Like, it's kind of like, I hope you make 50 mistakes today. That's their kind of, because they know that's how you learn. Because you're never going to, and I think my life is all about me making a million mistakes. I like that. Trial and error, trial and error, trial and error, trial and error. And I never really think I know anything. I think I've absolutely, even now, I can tell you now, I know absolutely nothing. I know, it's like I wake up every day going, I haven't a clue. I'll just keep going with my, curiosity, and I'll take the next step and the next step. And I probably learn, you let go of most of the stuff you're trying to let go of, most of the stuff you've learned, open yourself up to new experiences. But it's kind of like, it's making all those mistakes is where the juice is, and that's the progress that you'll make, But I 100%, you're talking about your mother with the kind of protect and the fear-based kind of mentality that keep everything the same. Keep it safe. But actually, if you're doing that, you're actually going to go into stagnation, and then you're going to go into depression, and it's actually, it's anti-life affirming, because you have to you need to go out into the world, experience it, and, fall down, get back up again, fall down, get back up again, constantly,
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. It's much that it is that keeping the family unit safe, isn't it? Keeping those that you love safe and, away from harm or potential harm. Because let's face it, most of it is only potential. It's not guaranteed that it's going to happen. And I love the fact that, I think we're all very similar in as much as, we experience so many different things, and some of those things we can consider as mistakes. I tend not to look at them as a mistake, because that very word to me kind of conjures up negative thoughts and emotions. But I prefer to look at those things as experiences and lessons. I've learned from those experiences, and what I've learned has always been really positive. So I take the positive from each of those experiences and carry them with me. I'm reading again. Dorota is saying there is a reason behind the saying, "Be careful what you wish for."
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'll tell you an amusing story now. Well, I think it's amusing anyway. Others might not. So we were talking just before we came on live here that I ran a taxi business, just me, my car, and just before lockdown happened, I actually set up my coaching business. There was no talk of the lockdown at the time, but it had always been planned. I'd always planned to set it up when I set it up. And I can remember thinking, crikey, I'm really, really busy with all the taxi work at the moment. I really wish that I could have some time spent away from doing all the taxi work and just focus on the coaching business and get it out there. Lo and behold, a week later, the government announced the first lockdown. So, of course, all the taxi work went out of the window, and I had all this time on my hands. So, in that respect, it's kind of been a good thing for me. But it's so true. Be careful what you wish for. So, I'm sorry, folks. It was all my fault.
I was just going to say, are you trying to say that it was all your fault? The whole lockdown, the global pandemic was because of Kerry wanted some time out.
Yep.
I would actually say, I think that you had a kind of intuitive hit that was more of a, even though you think that you kind of wanted it, you were nearly feeling it, that it was coming. You know, that there was an actually, you were picking something up on the ether, such the Ethernet, that you know, that there was actually, and I think that's what I do as well. It's not even that I'm attracting it. I'm actually starting to I hear the future coming as such. You know, it's kind of like it's like a, you know, the breeze before, you know, the wind comes. It's just like a little something that you kind of get a sense of as such. And then, you know, it will start to come into reality. So I think like people that are kind of super sensitive are kind of empaths, and people that are very in tune with life as such kind of get that intuitive hit, you know. And it's funny actually what you said about the mistake and the a lesson. I was thinking about it yesterday actually. I was thinking to myself, what's a mistake and what, you know, I was thinking to myself, a mistake is only a mistake if you don't learn from it. You know, if you keep making the same thing, if you actually learn from this mistake, it becomes wisdom, doesn't it? So you kind of transfer, you kind of crystallize it into something that because, you know, the same thing is going to keep coming back into your life again and again and again and again until you learn the lesson. And sometimes it'll happen again about 10 times until you say, okay, just stop doing that. That's over now. That behavior, that way of thinking, that type of relationship, that type of, you know, kind of even self-sabotage that we talk about, or, you know, until you stop eating a certain way and expecting yourself to feel better, or, you know, those kind of loops that, you know, self-sabotaging kind of loops, you know, you just, it's a mistake until you learn the lesson, you get the wisdom, and you move on to the next, you know, step.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. I must admit, at that time, I knew that something was occurring. I didn't know what. I couldn't put my finger on it. But like you say, you know, with that intuition, it was as if a tiny little sort of hint had floated its way to me on the breeze that prompted me to decide that that's when I'm going to set up the coaching business. Lockdown. None of us wanted, to be fair. But for me, it did give me that opportunity to then really fully focus on that.
And that's what I thought when we talk about synchronicity, you know, that's what you're talking about. You know, when you're opened up to life, and when you're becoming part of life, you know, part of the force of life as such, you are like, you know, cogs in a wheel or in a clock as such. You know, you're in the groove of life, so you're moving along with the life attention of life as such. And the same with myself. A year before, I think it was the lockdown, I started writing the Rainbow Warrior, and I just had, I said, I'm going to do this. I never wrote a book. Never thought. I said to Dorota in her interview, I never thought that I was a writer. Never thought I could have a book. I never even wanted it. It wasn't something that I ever kind of dreamt of. It's just something that I have to do this. I know this is going to be important, and I'm just going to have to do it. So it kind of like brought me on a personal journey as well, because I had to kind of deconstruct all those ideas I had about myself. Karen, actually, no, you can do this. And it was taking me out of a box that I had within myself. So then, like, it took a year for it. And, you know, the day it was published was the day that Ireland went into lockdown, went on market.
Wow.
It was a mindfulness, you know, book for kids. And it was, and then everybody was saying, oh, children are the ones that were being hit hardest with lockdown and the isolation. And it was about, you know, imagination and connection to nature. And then, you know, that's what everybody in Ireland started doing, going out to nature, and because we were locked down away from the normal routine and things like that. And, you know, you just think of actually, like you said, you're getting that sense, you know, of what maybe needs to be done, you know, or, you know, it's just been intuitive to life, you know, and with life. Yeah.
I am a big big believer in listening to your intuition, your gut instinct. I've not always listened to mine, but it's been right every single time, whether I've listened to it or not. So yeah, it just simple things like driving down the road and getting to the end of the road and thinking in my mind, I know which direction I'm going to go in. Yeah. But then as I get to the junction, I think, oh, shall I go the other way? Oh, I'll go the other way this morning. So go the other way and get stuck in traffic.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'd gone the way that I'd originally envisioned, that probably would have been okay, So I've learned from that as well.
Yeah, and that's the mastery of it, isn't it? The mastery is how proficient you are in listening.
That's it,
to that.
And I mean,
that's becoming a master of that, of the intuition, and then your life becomes driven by that, and you're just intuitive constantly then, and it becomes just totally like, it's just your life is synchronized constantly, so it's not that you have to even make decisions much anymore. It's kind of like sit back and listen, and then you get the direction, but it's a lot of silence that's needed for that, as in, and by silence I mean being very focused on what you are bringing to the world is important, and what I can do is important, and because there's going to be a lot of noise, not so much even in your own mind but around you, and people can put you off that track as well, because maybe you have those kind of, and that's when like your emotional well-being and your emotional relationships are really important to kind of look at, because how are you being directed in a way that maybe isn't supporting your best interest, that is self-serving somebody else, and then it's putting you off your intuition, and that's part of it as well, isn't it? You have to do that work along with it. It's not just the intention, it's how do you become a master in that, in your own self-mastery and self-governance, and the more you do it, and the more you surround yourself with people who are in that way, the stronger you get, Would you agree, Kerry?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. It's like, I mean, it's one of those subjects I could talk about for hours and hours and hours and hours. But yeah, I mean, that little story I just told about, approaching the junction, and instantly my mind goes, right, I'm that's the journey, but then I'm consciously thinking, or do I go the other way? And I mean, that is a true story. And it happens quite a lot. But it's a wonderful metaphor for the whole of life, isn't it? Sort of lock into our intuition, listen to it, connect to it, trust it.
Yeah, what's that poem? The road less traveled. I took the road less traveled, and it made all the difference. Who was the poet who wrote that? And that's so true. Because like that, the road that most people go on, and it's scary to go down the road that nobody else goes along. Because it can be isolating, and it takes courage, and it takes bravery and conviction and all those kind of characteristics that are vital, really, to that self-mastery. You need to kind of, those are the words that you need to be trusting, and your courage and your conviction and your, it's kind of, I suppose, understanding like that, coming out of that pleaser mindset as well. That's a tough one to undo, because it takes a while to realize that, like a little bit like your mother you were talking about, she was trying to protect you, but really, if you're to listen to that, it's not really protection, really, because you're not following your destiny, you're not following the path that you're supposed to be going down, and that's going to end up you suppressing yourself, and and that leads to mental health issues. And, that's the seed of it really, isn't it? You need to be following, your own path, and you're only going to benefit your family. You're only going to benefit everyone around you in hindsight, if they can kind of, and then I suppose it's difficult because you need a support system. Everyone needs to be part of the community, and part of we as well. So there is a kind of time of when you're kind of isolated, but then, you do find your community, and it gets easier, But so if anybody it isn't an easy path, like you said, even with your friend, that people aren't really open to really thinking this new way. Some people, so I think it's just to bear in mind that, I suppose it's a shift in thinking, isn't it? That's happening, like in humanity, but the more people that are kind of thinking along those lines and having those realizations in their own life and those experiences, the more momentum will be gained, and it'll be easier for them because, more people that are doing what they love and that are well in the world and are functioning properly, the more, they can help become problem solvers. That's what happens, become a problem solver. It's not that you're going to be sitting back and in a palace and lie with yourself. You will become a problem solver, and you become, a force for good in the world. And we need that more and more,
Definitely. Yeah. But I love the fact that, when you were talking about your book, and the day that it got published was the first day that Ireland went into lockdown. I mean, talk about synchronicity, talk about great timing, perfect timing, in fact. So,
and Kerry, that wasn't easy for me. That was that caused an awful lot of problems in my own personal life, like bringing the book out, because, it just brought up a lot. But so, in the process of that, I had to find courage, I had to find resilience, I had to find all those characteristics in myself I didn't have, that I thought I had, but I had to embody that through the process, so it's kind of embodying those. So it was actually it's not just even bringing a book out, it's what's the transformation that happens within you when you're kind of creating something like that from your own kind of truths, I guess, and living your own truths,
Oh, absolutely. It's a game of trust and belief, isn't it, in the self, the self. It just all boils down to that intuition again, I think, doesn't it? Really.
Yeah, really. Absolutely. If we can harness that, if we can get everybody listen to their intuition, it's amazing, Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. It's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. It's definitely. So yes, the law of attraction. I mean, as I said at the very start, it's working for us all the time. It never works against us. The only reason that it seems like it's working against us is because of what we're putting out there. And it's much like our unconscious minds or subconscious minds. It doesn't compute negatives. So if I was to say to you, oh, Caroline, right at the moment, don't think of a pink elephant, what do you instantly think of?
A pink elephant.
There you go. See? So when we're talking about manifesting stuff through, getting the law of attraction to work positively for us, when we want something really great to happen in our lives, we've got to put it out there. It's I don't know, if somebody's looking for the perfect job, for example, a really, really good job. If they've come away from a job or they're currently in an employed situation that is not favourable, that they're not happy in, if we then put out there that we want a new job that isn't, insert negative statement here, the universe isn't going to hear isn't, it's just going to hear the negative statement.
Yeah.
So if we put out there instead, if we flip that and turn it into a positive and say, I want a new job where I am completely respected and valued for my input into the company or whatever,
Yeah. Kerry, I just think you said something really vital there that we have to pull out. Is the fact that you have to find out what you want. Yes. Which actually is a lot of people are really disconnected from, which I had to, really sit with for a long time. And actually, when I heard that the first time I heard it, years ago, I was like, what I want? What do you mean I want? That was I hadn't ever even asked myself that question, even though I had been kind of going along and getting on in life or whatever. I had obviously obstacles and lots of challenges and lots of, things that happened that I had to overcome, and gained loads of resilience from that. But still, I got to the stage where I think when I turned 40, it was like, what do I actually want? Yeah. Kind of asking yourself that. And I think that unlocks the law of attraction, because a lot of people haven't connected with that. They're maybe maybe pleasing others, pleasing society, pleasing their family, so that's not actually true to them. It's not true to what they want. So they can't attract what you actually would make you happy, if you don't know what you want.
I totally agree. We all know it's easy to work out what we don't want, but actually realizing what we do want is more difficult. And I think a lot of that is purely because, and I'm talking from my own experiences here, it's very much like, I think we started off with this, or quite early on in this, we were talking about how we are, when we're brought up, we're brought up to think of others first, put others before ourselves, and so I spent many years actually putting myself last. I knew what I wanted, but I'd been brought up to believe, and I'm not blaming anybody here. I'm not in the slightest, because I understand how we all work. But I was brought up to believe that, I shouldn't be selfish, that I should put others first before myself. And my needs, my wants, my desires came second. Excuse me. But I was also brought up to believe that, at that time, that was my life. And I had two choices. I could either accept it as it was and put up with it if I wasn't, overly happy with it. Or I could, still just accept it for what it was and be unhappy. There was no sort of, work out what you want and then go for it. And every time I mentioned about what I wanted to do with my life, I was told, oh, you can't do that. Why can't I do that? Well, because it'll cost far too much money. Look at how you were at school. You'd never, ever devote the time and put the work in. You're not disciplined enough.
Actually, Kerry, I have to come in again. Sorry, but you're saying something really important there. You're saying something really, really important and vital, because there is we're getting into the nuanced stuff here now, but what you're talking about there is vitally important, because when it comes to creativity and the intention and what you want, you have to be really careful about who you say that to, because their energy can come in and annihilate that really quickly. So you have to be very careful. I would say, if you really want to do something, don't even be selective about who you say it to. Pick people who are in the same mindset, because you can't, and it's not that there's anything, your family are always going to be wanting to, support you and everything like that. But like that, it's that fear mindset. They want to protect you. They're afraid, they're scared. But so I think you have to be very careful of those beautiful intentions and things that you really want, and who you say them to, because you have to keep those pure, you know, and they have much more power if they're not said. Be careful about when you share them and who you share them with.
Yes.
Because
yeah,
you can be very much, they can be dampened down and they can actually be destroyed very quickly.
Oh, absolutely. Thankfully, when that happened to me more recently, and I'm talking in the last 5 years, my mindset was strong enough. My belief was so solid, absolutely solid, that I used that comment that, oh, you'll never do it. You're not disciplined enough to do it. I used that to enhance my determination. And in turn, that enhanced my belief that I would actually achieve what I wanted to set out to achieve. And I've done that, you know. So it's about, how do you use those comments? How do you allow those comments to affect your thinking?
I do that too, Kerry. That's brilliant, because I almost call it, that's fuel for my fire. I go, thank you so much. You're telling me I can't do that? Really? Okay.
Yeah. Watch this space.
Just watch me.
Yes.
And then they go, oh, wow. And then all of a sudden, you know, because it's fuel for the fire. I would say that's fuel for the fire, definitely.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. See, all of these things, we can use them to our advantage.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, as long as we use them in the right ways. In the right ways.
Yeah, it's just that kind of, but you have to have it does take a while to get that strength within yourself, because that's why it's so careful. It's so tender at the beginning of that kind of journey, because you're not well established in yourself, and to be able to know, you know, to be able to hold that intention, you know, and without it being kind of, I suppose, watered down or whatever. Yeah, you know. Yeah. So it gets easier that way.
Yeah.
Thank God.
I know. Wow. Caroline, we've chatted for near enough an hour, our allocated time slot.
Wow.
I know we could talk for hours about this, and I'm sure that we will do at some point. I'd like to say thank you so much for joining me this morning. And what a shame that Kerry's laptop wouldn't let her back in. Never mind.
It's nothing. There's no, like you say, there's no mistakes. Things happen for a reason. So we don't know. We just have to trust it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Right. Update for your diaries at the end. Please tune in tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. UK time, as Tessa Spanberg, I believe that is, and Steve Knapp will be empowering you, but with a twist, as they will be joined by a special guest with international profiling and communication specialist, Alan Stevens. So that sounds exciting.
That's a treat. Alan's a real, he's a master. Alan is, so definitely tune into that, guys.
Definitely. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in, and if you're watching on the replay, just put a little hashtag replay in the comments. Any questions at all about the law of attraction? There are plenty of us here to help you out with that. And if you want to know more about how it can positively help you with mental health, again, do get in touch. And anyway, I think it's time to say cheerio, and we'll see you very soon.
Bye.